Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cardfellas Shorty. I'm Matt. That's Chris. Today, we're diving into PSA numbers, and they are bonkers for March. We're going to talk about SGC, their numbers, bonkers as well. We got all this covered in this new episode of the Shorties. Chris, what do you make of these PSA SGC numbers for March? They are ridiculous.
Well, I think PSA has been really busy putting people on and expanding their operations. So I think we're going to start seeing more and more records. They broke a record this last month in March with 987,000 cards graded. I think that's going to continue to climb as they still work through the backlog. Mike, I've got an order there right now that I submitted in early March. It was entered into the system in April of last year. And they still haven't finished grading it, so they still have a lot of cards to work through there.
Yes.
And I think as they continue to ramp up their operations, they're going to keep breaking records. In SGC, they're the guy that's sitting there going, listen, if you want to get your stuff graded and you want to get it back right now and you don't want to wait in this virtual queue thing, just send it to us. And they did more cards than they've ever done in March too. But here's an interesting thing, and it kind of gives you an idea of the difference between the two companies. PSA did 987,000 cards. SGC did 103,000. And Beckett, it'll be interesting to see when they get through their backlog, like what they're doing, because I don't think anyone's interested in sending cards to Beckett anymore. They did 76,000 last month.
Yeah, and some context to those numbers. We're talking about PSA, that 987,000 graded cards in March is 20% higher than their previous record month.
Yep.
And that was of September of 2021. And that was 31% higher than the previous month of February of this year. So they are definitely turning the corner on getting cards in and out, which, say what you will, it's going to make this grading part of the hobby flare back up again, because they're going to be churning and burning, man, I tell you. And the SGC numbers too, pulling ahead of Beckett, shouldn't be a surprise if anybody has followed Beckett or tried to submit to them, because they didn't really have much open as far as cost. They just opened up their $50, but they will tell you it's there's a limited number, even though it's not publicized. So SGC is making continues to make some waves in this grading world. But let's dig into the PSA numbers a little bit more and talk about what's leading the way, what sports are leading the way, and what's driving these numbers. And I'll let you take that away.
Yeah, your first submission, I think you sent it to the Pokemon guy.
Yeah, that's a story for another day. But yes, I sent it to the Pokemon guy.
The Pokemon guy was super busy in March. 300,000 Pokemon cards led the way. There was 247,000 basketball cards and 212,000 baseball cards graded. That was the top three as far as different sports, I guess, different subjects graded. Baseball led the way at SGC, but most graded players at PSA. And I'm taking out the Pokemon cards because I think Charizard was number one, and I think Pikachu was number three. But Jordan is back as the number one, and I really do believe I have a theory about that too. I think people were just trying. When I sent my cards in, it was it was about to shut down, and Jordan cards were selling for all-time highs, and it was just send every Jordan you have to PSA, and that's what I did. So I think that's what's fueling that. I think PSA's getting to that part of the backlog right now, is kind of those last cards that were sent in before they did the shutdown. So 25,000 Jordan cards graded in March.
Yeah. And that's followed by LeBron and Kobe and Ja and Zion. So basketball really was, king in March. And those cards were obviously sent in a while ago, but those are the ones that are getting pushed out. And when we talk about PSA being basketball heavy, it's also baseball heavy. You have Luis Robert. He's a guy that is getting heavily graded. One of the whiffs we have here is Kyle Lewis. We talked about him many times on this broadcast and podcast that he won the American League Rookie of the Year in a shortened season, and everybody kind of jumped on that bandwagon maybe prematurely, but a lot of cards are getting churned out.
Yeah, his 2020 Topps base rookie was the number 6 most graded card at PSA in March. I think what's crazy though is the number 1.
Right.
Like I told you earlier today, I'm like, I think I could give you 1,000 guesses and you wouldn't get it. It is the 2020 Topps Bo Bichette base card. There was 1,400 of those graded.
Do you have any idea? Like, what's your reasoning? What's your just because he was? Is it speculative? I mean, that was it. Was that the?
Yeah.
That was it. Like he was. I mean, there was buzz. I know there was buzz, but to put him ahead of the 90 Fleer Jordan, the other guys on these lists, like what a random card to be number 1. Let's repeat that. The 2020 Topps Bo Bichette base card is the most graded card at PSA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a significant amount of hype around him. I think there's still people right now who are excited about Bo Bichette. I've heard people talking about him being in the MVP race this year. So I think people are excited about him and his prospects and what he could be as a player. Obviously, his dad was a major leaguer, so he definitely can help him get through things and figure his way through being a professional baseball player. You mentioned it, the 1990 Fleer Michael Jordan number 26 card is the number 2 card, and I actually have 9 of those in grading right now myself. So I'm contributing to that. But Luis Robert, the 2020 Topps base card, and then Yordan Alvarez was another guy in 2020 that everybody was kind of looking forward to. And I think that he's actually another guy that I'm buying this year because I think he's affordable, and I think I still believe in him. I think he can be a really good baseball player, and he's a guy that you can get in pretty inexpensively right now.
Yeah, and we should talk about the football guys on this list too. It's names that we've talked about before being on this list: the Joe Burrows, the Justin Herberts, and Tom Brady. So the quarterbacks are the obviously the cream of the crop when it comes to collecting and getting PSA cards graded or getting cards graded by PSA. I think one of the things that we talked about is PSA wants to get to that million mark. And I think they will probably this month. They will just continue to break records. The question that you have to pose is, and several people have on our video casts and our YouTube channel, PSA does not get favorable reviews for its grading process. It's very, I don't want to say it's spin the wheel and give me a grade, but there are the inconsistency of grading is well documented, and I know they're achieving these massive numbers. Are you worried at all about the integrity of the grading at this point with them working through all of this product? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there is some inconsistency, but every time I've done a submission, I've basically graded the cards myself before I send them in. And I would say that probably 95% of the time I'm really close. And then there'll be one that you just completely miss by a mile. And most of the time when that happens, I look at the card and I can't figure out what I missed.
Right.
And it's usually, obviously, you send a card in. Nobody sends a card in unless it's like super vintage that they think is going to get a 4. and you send a card in and it comes back a 4, and you're like, what is going on here? But I've also had a few cards that have come back 10s that, there's just no way it's a 10. But
it's a good point too. It goes that way. Yeah.
It definitely goes that way as well. And you see them online all the time. When you're looking on eBay, you'll see, cards that are 10s, and you look at it and you're like, that ain't no 10.
No.
So it's something that I think people have to look out for, because a lot of people just buy the grade. They don't really look at the card. There are definitely buyers who do. I actually had a card come back to me that was a 9 last year, and the guy just got it, and he's like, I don't think this is a 9, and sent it back. So I mean, that's fine. I ended up selling it to another guy who was perfectly happy with it.
It's rare, but it's rare, but it happens, right?
I think the other thing, and I forgot to mention it when we were talking about the most graded cards. You noticed a lot of those were 2020 cards, and the shutdown happened in March, so there wasn't a lot of opportunity for people to send baseball cards from 2021 in. That was it, because it got shut down for so long, and then it came back as a $200 grader, and no one's going to send in, their tops, those cards that you're going to send in $200 aren't going to be the most submitted cards. And now we're back right now at $50, and even at $50
for some,
right?
Like not
if you get, if you win their little Q thing, even at $50, most people are not opening. And they don't have the type of cards that you're going to send in to get graded at $50.
Now, before the shutdown, it was at 25, right?
Last one that I sent in, which I did my submission in February, I think the price went up March 1st. I'm in at $12 on these cards. But yeah, I think it went to 25 like 2 days.
I think it went from 15. I think it went from 15 for that might be ultra modern, but yes, I think 25 was the number where then they stopped taking submissions. I think that was the number.
April
and so
1st.
Yes, and that was April 1st. So yes, and so now we're back to the lowest being 50, and you're absolutely right. So you're not going to see a lot of 2021 cards getting graded quite yet. And but back to what PSA is hoping to do, they've gone on the record say we want to get over 15 million cards in a 12-month span, and so they're moving through these cards, trying to get this quickly. And I think they're going to try and figure out what's next for them when it comes to making sure that the integrity of the hobby stays headed in the right direction when it comes to grading. I think we all have agreed, and it's been well documented on our show and other places, the days of those $12 grades are probably long gone. And I don't know if it'll ever get below 25 unless the hobby gets abandoned again. But I think that's the number that I think a lot of people will be satisfied with. And that's why SGC is making the move. Right now they're charging $30 for people, but you can get on submission groups and get them for lower. Like I did a submission reveal from SGC where I paid $30, and someone commented, they said, you should get in with this for $23. So SGC has some deals where you can get those in for $23. And I think that's what, we both agree, that's what's helping them, move a lot of product in and out. And they're doing it in a very timely manner that is allowing people to pay less and get their cards quicker, which, for a lot of people in the hobby, that's a win-win. And they like the look of it at the end product as well. So, a lot to digest with these numbers, but just interesting conversation when it comes to grading and where it is at in the hobby.
Yeah, and what do you do in 2022? And we talked about these cards that are getting graded by PSA right now are a lot of 2020 cards. Joe Burrow and Herbert, those guys were 2020 rookies. You're not seeing the Justin Fields and the Trey Lances yet because you just couldn't send them in at that value.
No.
And I think that's really very, very interesting right now because we have a rookie in baseball that I don't think there's been as much hype surrounding a rookie in baseball since Ken Griffey Jr. and Wander Franco. And people are craving his graded cards right now. And, unless you can get in on that drawing and you want to pay $50 to get a card graded, you're not getting your Wander Franco card graded by PSA. So I think there's a major opening here for SGC because people can grade their cards through SGC. They can go right up and submit it and get it in there. And right now, SGC is turning things around really in less than 30 days. I looked on eBay the other day and I typed in Wander Franco PSA. And this was about a week ago. And I got 180 returns. And I put in Wander Franco SGC, 120. So about 60% PSA, 40% SGC. If we look at the total numbers that got graded in March, it was 90% PSA, 10% SGC of the total, 1.1 million cards that got graded. So I think SGC has a massive opening here with Wander Franco because there are just going to be a lot more Wander Franco SGC cards in the market, comparatively speaking, with the PSA cards are the same guy. So I think this is an opportunity that if Wander Franco does, what a lot of people are hoping he does, this might be that time where SGC actually starts to get a foothold because people are going to be carrying those SGC slabs around if they want Wander Franco on a slab.
Yeah, and it's interesting that Wander Franco's card is leading the charge for SGC, and you're starting to see this. One of the things you're not seeing, as far as I know, maybe this is something worth diving into, but you're not seeing a lot of those Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Trevor Lawrence base cards in SGC, are you? Because that you can almost make an argument that that could have been the way too, and we didn't really look into it. It's just got the way you're describing the Wander Franco. That's the way you would approach football as well. But the problem I think with that is the lack of product coming out in a timely manner.
You had that, and you also had this awesome rookie class where there were so many guys, and it's kind of diluted it because it's like right now everybody in baseball is hunting for Wander, and when they get it, they're going to send it in.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But we had 5 first-round quarterbacks last year. You had Jamar Chase. You had all these incredible rookies, and it's like you can't send them all in.
Yeah.
Most people can't.
Right.
So you have to kind of pick and choose who you're going to send in. Whereas right now, if you're opening baseball product, you're hunting for Wander. There's no, 5 quarterbacks and Jamar Chase and all these other guys. You just have really one rookie that everybody's going after right now in baseball.
Yeah, and I think one of the things about SGC that we definitely have not talked about because I've done several SGC submissions as well as PSA and Beckett. But SGC is clearly my second choice to PSA, is the chase for the gold label. And the pristine gold label that you can potentially get from SGC can multiply the value of that card by 3-4x. So like the Wander Franco is a great example. We talked about the PSA 10 selling for $150. An SGC 10 is selling for around $85-$90, but an SGC gold pristine 10 is selling for like $450. So if you can, spin that wheel and get lucky and get a gold label Wander Franco, now you've, really made a profit on that card. But again, those are very rare, and SGC doesn't just pass those out like candy. So, but it's a chase that I think a lot of people like. And maybe that's one of the things that, people are really looking for when they submit to SGC, that, it's kind of like that black label pristine that, Beckett was famous for. When you got a 10 at Beckett, like, whoa, it kind of stopped people in their tracks. So I think SGC has an opportunity, but, maybe it's going to take giving out a couple more of those 10s just to create that buzz. Again, it's PR, right? Too.
Right. The thing that scares me about sending stuff to SGC is the freaking 9.5. It's like kissing your sister. And, to me, I feel like, if you have a 9.5 card and it's at PSA, I think some of those cards are getting 10s and some of them obviously are getting 9s. But that 9.5, it just feels like a cop out for the grader.
Yeah.
Maybe this isn't. And there just seems to be so many 9.5s out there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It just kills you. And it's one of those things, too, where it's like, you talked about the values on the Franco card. Even an SGC 10, is worth about half of what the PSA 10 is. But when you go to the 9.5, then you're really, I mean, you're less than a PSA 9. And it's hard for me to wrap my head around that. And, I'm just glad PSA doesn't have 9.5s. Don't come up with that.
Yeah, they do have the 0.5s, and it does sometimes, impact the card's value. We've talked about that too. But, it's interesting. I like to see the competitiveness happening. I mean, it's clearly PSA's world, and the rest of them are just living in it. But SGC has a strong following. We've seen that on this show. We've seen that in the comments. People really respect what they're doing. They feel like they're grading, properties, habits, whatever you may call, is more strict than PSA. They're more consistent than PSA, but it's hard to tell. It really is hard to tell. But competition is good, and maybe it will help bring PSA's prices down. But I guess we'll see. That's what we'll keep an eye on.
I think it's going to be just a market correction. I don't think SGC is going to bring the prices down of PSA unless they really get going. Right. I just think it's going to be a market correction. I just don't see the hobby. I mean, right now, PSA has so many cards in the backlog. They don't care if they get cards in or not. They're doing this $50 thing more of a service to their customers, because they could care less whether they get cards in right now. I think they're just trying to cash flow a little bit more. Obviously, you're seeing these $50 submissions come back a lot faster than the backlogs coming back, which has caused them some PR issues, but I don't blame them. I mean, you can grade a card for 50 or grade a card for 12. What are you going to do? Yeah. I kind of call it like the Disney World Fast Pass line. If you go to Disney World, they've got the Fast Pass, and they basically, if you got the Fast Pass, you're walking right in. If you don't, you kind of get to go in maybe every 10 people. And I think that's what's happening right now at PSA. They're getting the folks who are winning the queue battle, and the guys who've been sitting there are kind of every once in a while we'll let one of those trickle through. So it's fine. I've gotten to the point now where it's like I've accepted my fate, and I'll just look forward to when they come. And I do enjoy, and obviously you enjoy too, getting those grades in, and it's exciting. To me, I can't send cards in for $50. I can't rationalize that in my head. But if it gets back down, around $15-20, I would be in again. I enjoy raw cards, and that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, and PSA has upped the allocation to 20 cards now instead of 5. So it's clear they have the capacity that they feel that they can turn these cards around in, what they say, 90 days. They're getting it out in about 30 to 40. So they're getting cash in quick and getting cash out, even quicker. They know they can still take time on our $10 and $12 orders. Right. So, but interesting to watch. We'll do this every month. We'll look at the numbers and just kind of continue to share. We find it interesting. We hope you find it interesting too, to see what people are collecting and getting graded. We like to have a good chuckle here and there when we see what people were sending, a year to, 13, 14 months ago, and what's coming out now.
I'm a little embarrassed about what's in my order, to be honest.
Yeah, what, like we've said on the show before, it's okay to take the L's as long as you're not, losing your house or your family. And the hobby is, much like any other investment, things go up and down. I've told stories about my Deshaun Watson. My Deshaun Watson cards have been at PSA through all of his ups and downs. And so here we are coming out in a much different place than when we were 6 months ago. So crazy stories from PSA. We'd love to hear your crazy stories from PSA. Let us know in the comments. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What do you want to know about? And if you're listening on the podcast, go to our YouTube channel, 10:30 Central Time, Wednesdays. We do a live broadcast on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, go to the podcast platforms and download our podcast. Take us with you in the car. But let's try and get some comments. Let's get some people talking, asking us some things. Let us know. We'd love to hear what you're saying about the hobby.
Here's what I want to know in the comments. I want to know, what is the most embarrassing card you have sitting at PSA or SGC right now? What's the card that you don't want to put in your reveal video, that if you were going to do a reveal video, what's the card you hope wasn't there? So that's what I want to see in the comments. Put the most embarrassing card in there.
Should we talk about this on our next episode?
That's actually a great episode idea.
Yeah, you and I will talk about the cards that we have there, and we'll pick out the most embarrassing. So we'll dive into this as well.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Talk to you.